Hey folks, Pat here from DNS. This Madison area fishing report is current as of October 28th. Before we get started, just wanted to go over a couple of shop things here. Made a post earlier this week. We got willy worms in, super popular, locally created um, lure here, and um, we were running low on the original stock. The owner had retired and sold his mold, who sold to a guy who sold his mold to a guy who sold his mold to a guy, but we tracked the mold down and we're getting them poured again. So really happy to have those back up. Um, and we also got some ice fishing stuff up on the shelves. Got some jigging wraps up and other similar style baits like that. Also got some ice combos up. So the shop's starting to look a lot more like ice season around here. So stop in and check some of this stuff out. If you're looking to get geared up for ice fishing, won't be far away. Also made a post that we're going to be closing again for November 12th through the 25th. That's basically for deer season, something Gene used to do for many years, and just continuing that tradition as that 2 weeks there is very, very slow around the shop. And I also bow and gun hunt, so it'll be nice to get out and spend some time in the woods. Wish everybody luck that might be out hunting, or if you get out fishing. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. But I'll keep reminding people of that as we do the posts here, so everybody knows we're going to be closed. The other big news is that on Wednesday, the City of Madison, for whatever reason, pulled all of the piers around town. These are all the city piers. So I guess there are no longer piers in at Olbrick on Monona and Tenney Park and Warner Park launches on Mendota. You can still launch at the state park on Mendota, but otherwise there is right now the only launch that is functioning would be Marshall Park, and they left one pier in there. I've contacted a few people at city parks, and I know other people have too, to complain because usually they would leave one pier in until at least Thanksgiving, but usually right before ice up, depending on whichever comes first. So hopefully that gets figured out soon because fall's arguably the best time of the year to be out fishing. So it's kind of a head scratcher as to why they chose to pull them this early. But get on to the report here. This week we had pleasant temps. Last weekend it was 75 degrees, beautiful weather. That gave way to some cooler temps earlier this week. But things have been warming up nicely, and this weekend looks absolutely beautiful with temps in the mid 60s, and then those temps look like they're extending into next week. So a lot of good opportunities to get out fishing. Don't put the boat away yet because, yeah, a lot of nice weather ahead, it looks like. And the fish are snapping out there. So the Mendota buoy read 53 degrees all the way down this morning, so the water's kind of holding steady from what it was last week, but those warm temps have kind of kept things stable, I assume. Generally around the chain, shallow water action continues to pick up, but still some walleyes being caught on mid-lake humps and out a little bit deeper. Up here on the north side, Cherokee has been, access is definitely improving up there. Weeds are dying back, and folks are catching fish. I've been hearing about some nice largemouth bass, but the pike population up there continues to be very strong. Lots and lots of pike up there being caught, and a lot of fish in that 20 to 30 inch range. So a lot of fun, but I don't hear about a lot of big fish coming out of there. 113 Bridge has been good for catfish, but also the walleye bite over here has been pretty strong lately. I also have heard about some perch and crappie coming out of there occasionally. So definitely worth a look. Nice mixed bag up there as usual. Like I said, the launches around Mendota at Warner Park and Tenney are essentially closed. You can still launch a boat there, but the piers are out, at least temporarily. Hope they get that fixed. Perch fishing remains slow, but gills have been really active on the weed lines and shallow all around the lake. So some good numbers of gills being caught. Redworms and spikes and even fatheads have been catching those fish. So that's exciting to hear about the gill population getting better. Still hearing about largemouth bass and smallmouth bass being caught shallow. Um, Largemouth bass in weeds, smallmouth bass on rocks. Mid-lake humps continue to produce good number of walleyes, with minnows being the bait of choice. But also those walleyes are moving shallow. Been hearing about good walleyes being caught at Tenney Park along the university shoreline, um, and any of the breaks around town, Maple Bluff, Governors, Picnic Point, Fox Bluff. Been hearing about fish all over, so some real good walleye action out there right now. It's a little tough to come across a keeper, but I have been hearing about some nice fish. One even at 29.5 I heard about the other day, so some good ones out there. Speaking of nice fish, the pike bite continues to be great around the lake, but I have been hearing about more and more of those 40-inch class fish that are bulking up for winter. Um, Good action down here at the Tenney Park Breakwall, like I mentioned, for walleyes, but also been hearing about some good fish coming out of the Yahara River, the isthmus here. A lot of tiny bluegills still in the Tenney Park Lagoon, but some nice largemouth in there to be caught. I've been hearing about them chasing around smallmouth and causing quite a scene down there, but there's some nice bass in there for sure. Also been hearing about a couple nice muskies being spotted in the river here, so that's where to look too. Speaking of muskies, Lake Monona continues to be pretty hot for muskies right now. The muskie bite's been great. Folks coming in the shop, picking up our muskie suckers, 12 to 14-inch suckers, have been doing well for those fish, but also folks catching fish on lures too. Panfish bite around the lake's been still pretty good. Bluegills and perch being caught along the weed lines and in the weeds all around the lake, as I understand it. Also some good bluegills and crappies coming off of the Monona Terrace Wall area. Some nice walleyes coming off the wall there too, from what I hear, and actually this whole kind of southeast shoreline. Been hearing about some good crappies and bluegills starting to move in, or continuing to move into the triangles in Monona Bay. They're getting ready to move in there, getting ready for winter. Lake Wingara, haven't heard a lot coming out of there. Some small muskies over there. A lot of tiny panfish and some good bass, but haven't heard much specifically out of for muskies. A lot of the action I hear about is over on Lakes Monona and Wabisa. Speaking of Wabisa, the Upper Mud Lake dredge hole has been a hotspot for panfish out there lately. Also, some good largemouth bass still coming out of the shallow areas around the dredge hole, and where there's the weeds are starting to die back there, but there's still some bass being caught. Hearing about good panfish all around Wabisa, along the weed line, in the weeds, any structure. A lot of those fish in 10 to 15 feet of water. Walleyes also, the action out there has been picking up. Been hearing about walleyes in front of Babcock and kind of the southwest shoreline, up near Hog Island as well, on the south end of the lake too. Panfish action's been picking up down there as well. But the muskie bite, like I mentioned before, has also been pretty great out here on Wabisa. So it's a good time to be out muskie fishing. Fall is the time to be out there, especially as we move into November here. They're really gonna start picking up out there. Kegonsa has been quiet for several weeks, but just this last week I've been hearing about some decent reports of some panfish finally coming out of the weeds there. Lots of bluegills and perch, some decent sized fish in there too, but tons and tons of small yellow bass. Kind of got to sort through those, but been hearing about some good walleyes being caught too. Sounds like the walleyes have been shallow in the mornings and evenings, but at night they're getting them right up near shore, so even shallower. Yeah, it's good to hear about the bite picking up out there after it's been quiet, at least from what I've heard for the last several weeks. Koshkonong, I hear they're having troubles with some low water. I heard that they might be drawing it down to repair the dam down here at Indian Ford. But low water up here right now, I guess, on Koshkonong has some of the ice anglers kind of concerned. Haven't heard how much it's really affected the bite out there. I know that they're still catching fish out here where the Rock River dumps in. Haven't heard much about the rest of the lake, but there's always a pretty safe bet there, trolling around that area where the Rock River dumps in. Been hearing about white bass, walleye, and catfish in the areas from Fort Atkinson up to Jefferson, and the Jefferson Dam in particular being a good spot where a lot of those fish are kind of backed up right now. Up on the Wisconsin River, I've heard about the same, good action up here to the Prairie du Sac Dam. From the dam all the way down to Sauk City has been good for walleyes and muskies. A lot of walleyes backed up at the dam right now. White bass, catfish in there too. Never really know what you'll get. Some sturgeon. Action downriver, at least on the smallmouth side of things, seems to have slowed down a bit. But the pike down there are out and on the hunt and looking to bulk up for winter, along with the occasional muskie you hear about out of there. The river levels are also very low, but I think I mentioned last week what that tends to do is congregate a lot of those fish in the deeper holes. So in a lot of ways, it makes them easier to catch. If you can just find some deeper water, even just slightly deeper water, we'll be holding fish in the river this time of year. Up on Lake Wisconsin, it had been, I guess kind of steady to slow the last several, I guess, months or weeks anyway. But I hear the action up there has been picking up quite a bit. Lots of walleyes and sauger coming out of there. Haven't heard specifics on locations, but trolling's been very effective, but also slip bobbers and jigging. So anything with a minnow seems to be working pretty well. Also starting to hear about some panfish, crappies, some bluegills moving in shallow into some of these areas, the fingers over here, the grade. So those are worth checking out for panfish, but the walleye and sauger bite's been great. I hear you got to sort through a lot of smaller fish, but action's been pretty awesome up there from what I hear. Haven't heard much out of the Portage to the Dells area, but great section of river there to float and get into some fish. The Dells Dam, I guess I did hear about some smaller walleyes coming out of there earlier this week, but that action's going to continue to improve. I'm sure there's white bass and probably some crappies backing up in there. I think usually happens about this time of year. Upriver from there to the Castle Rock and Pettenwell dams have been, same as all the dams on the river. Get a good mixed bag of walleyes and some muskies in there, catfish, anything that swims in the river kind of congregates up near the dams, focusing on bulking up for winter. In both lakes, Castle Rock and Pettenwell, I guess they had kind of a gross algae bloom here, maybe from those warm temps we had last weekend, but I understand that water is starting to clear up. Walleye action has also been great on both these bodies of water, with good walleye action on deep breaks, but also shallow in the evenings and mornings, and some good panfish action near breaks, as I understand, and along shore. The Mississippi River action continues to improve. Some great perch action out there, as I understand. The perch bite's on fire out there right now, and also, the walleye bite continues to improve as we move into fall. Crappies too, I've been hearing about along shore and in wood in the sloughs and backwaters over there. Over to Milwaukee, I was over there this last weekend with my son. We were looking for some salmon. We found a few. To be honest, the only ones that we got in were snagged and were pretty moldy. So I would say that the salmon run over here is pretty much, or the king salmon run anyway, is pretty much done. There's cohos up still in a lot of the rivers. I hear about good numbers of cohos up in the Port Washington area, and but still a lot of fish in the Milwaukee River. I've been hearing about a few reports of steelhead being caught and some browns. So those fish will move in there and have moved in there, chasing the salmon up to eat their eggs, but also the browns will be spawning here in a little bit, and the steelhead will be hanging out there. They eat the brown eggs and then kind of hang out. Some of them hang out all winter. Some of them swim back out to the lake, but those fish will be hanging out there until they spawn in the spring. But same deal all the way up the coast here. Like I mentioned, what was it? Port Washington had some good cohos in there, I heard, and some pink salmon, Sheboygan, all these trips all the way up and down the coast there, bound to have fish. Great walleye action up here to Green Bay, some monster fish, really hungry this time of year. Also, world-class muskie fishery up there, some really big fish hanging out in the bay. Haven't heard much out of the Lake Winnebago. I know there's a good white bass run going on up there. But I guess that pretty much does it for the warm water species. Trout fishing, of course, season's closed, but the salmon and steelhead over in the Milwaukee River is a great time to get out and kind of scratch that itch. Otherwise, there's always Iowa. not a far drive from the west side, hour and a half. You can get into some great trout water over here. A lot of those fish in Iowa are stocked, but it's a great fishery and a great opportunity to get out and enjoy some of this nicer weather while the season's closed here in Wisconsin. I guess that's it for the report. Feel free to post your comments and catches below. And if you have any questions, feel free to call the shop here. Happy to kind of elaborate on anything. And as far as the launches go around town, like I said, hopefully the city gets that figured out and gets a launch back in at each of the launches till ice up, so we can have access, because like everybody knows, it's great fishing right now. So anyway, yeah, that's it for the report. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck to everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.